Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome everyone. This is the weekly Halaqa that we usually used to do in the masjid. We start now doing it here on the internet through YouTube, and it's mainly dedicated for the new Muslim group that we have in the masjid. We have a vibrant group of converts who are really inspiring. I always feel that converts always breathe new life into the community. And Umar ibn Khattab said that when people first enter Islam, they tend to find themselves to be extremely full of energy and full of zeal. But he says, and he was very practical, he says, and he was the most full of zeal, okay? He wanted to go out there and he was ready to go. But he also said, very practically, that the zeal dies away. That the zeal goes away, but that doesn't mean that nothing came in its place. Wisdom comes in its place, responsibility comes in its place. So you start now becoming, instead of someone taken by emotion, you're now somebody taken more by wisdom. All right, you're not driven by that the deen is something new. You're now driven by this as something more knowledge based. Okay, and that you have responsibility now. You need to pass it on. All right, and you start seeing that with some of the Muslims who come in full of zeal, and not only just Muslim youth who actually start taking their deen seriously for the first time. All right, they come in with such energy, but over time, if things go right, and if they seek knowledge in the right places, that energy turns into maturity, and it turns into the ability, competence, the ability to teach, the ability to do something for the community, the ability to be a good example, the ability to be a mentor. And then it turns into wisdom, experience and wisdom, right? So that's how the tree is. So Umar ibn Khattab, when he first entered, was one thing. Years later, he was something else. And that was likewise with all the Sahaba who were converts. And most of the Sahaba were converts. Now, there was Sayyidina Abu Bakr also said another thing. He said that one of the things that he loves is to look at new Muslims when they first hear the Quran, right? And just to look, and he says, because the amazement has gone from us, right? The idea that I've never heard this before, right? That's gone. That new discovery is gone from people who are experienced in the deen, and it becomes something that, the Quran, of course you love the Quran, but it's something that's not new to you anymore. So it's not something amazing anymore. It's not something you're turning the pages to see what's going on, because you know it. You're well versed, right? You have read it and you have studied. And so the Sahaba they did recognize that there are phases. Okay, so that's the intent, and that's the group that this halaqah is based on. Of course, anyone can listen in, but that's who it's directed for. Just to keep that in mind. Now, I wanted to talk about something interesting. We all live, in communities, in families, especially the converts, where, let's take me for example. I live in a street. Okay, and it's like a cul-de-sac, and you're talking to, it is a cul-de-sac. You talk to the neighbors on a regular basis, especially now that the coronavirus is caused a lot of people to take walks and be out and about and all that stuff. We talk a lot, right? We talk about, what do we talk about? The grass. We talk about coronavirus. We talk about, whatever professions people are in. I usually know, alhamdulillah, Allah has given me the awareness at a certain point that I was at a certain point, I didn't know how to talk to people, right? It wasn't something I was like, really knew how to do. But I started studying it. I started watching people, observing, listening. And so they're an easy way to start conversations with people. And the best thing is to ask them what they do, right? And then make yourself interested, right? All of a sudden they open up. So we talk about stuff like that, gardening. People have dogs, right? And we talk about their dogs. And one of our neighbors has a dog with a 3 legs, basically. So we talk. Another one is like a blind in one eye. I mean, I guess she's got a shelter for like these mishaps and these masakin of dogs. But point being, we get along fine. Everyone is happy, right? And the reason that everyone's happy is because everyone is mature enough to know the constraints of the discussion. That we're neighbors here. They know I'm Muslim. There's another Muslim down the road. There is a Chinese family. There is an Italian family. It's very diverse. There's an Indian family. Okay, it's a very diverse community. There's Indian Christians and Indian Hindus. It's a diverse little area. Okay, so we all know to keep the talk superficial, right? To keep it not superficial like in a bad sense, but that's how things should be, or that's how we're going to be happy. Don't go into now in the back of your mind. Everyone knows, but you don't think about it, that when it comes to the most important things in life, we're not going to agree, right? We're not going to agree, so we don't even bring it up. But this leads me to a point of awkwardness that many people face. Okay, and especially if you're a convert and you have family members who aren't Muslim, you're going to face this a lot. Okay, it's the idea that on the biggest issues of life, the diversity is no good. You don't want to be diverse on those subjects. I like to be diverse in everything else, but not on these major subjects of how we live and what we do and what we believe in. Right, where we came from, what's the purpose of life, and where we're going. Right. So what most people do to get away from this weird feeling that we totally disagree on these issues. And actually, I think that you might think my beliefs are crazy. I think your beliefs are crazy, right? Not only disagree, these are such big issues that your whole premise to me is insane. Your whole premise to me is so far out and ludicrous, and my whole premise to you, right, is so far, removed from your reality. Okay, so point being here is that many people, they go the route of saying, you know what, the easy way is there is really no truth. It's whatever is true for you. Okay, whatever you think is true is good for you, because this is the way that people talk when they want to get out of this weird realization that this person, I get along with him really well. I see him every single week, every day sometimes, right? And we wave, we talk. I mean, some of these people, they have the key to your houses sometimes, right? Like neighbors usually do that, right? When I'm going away, here's the emergency key. Can you feed the cats? We have this great relationship, right? But you don't want to think of anything deeper than that, right? And that's the rule, okay? But so many people get away from that by saying, you know what? It's all relative. It's all good, because you don't want that cognitive dissonance that this person that you have developed a great relationship with, that you have this major disagreement with. Okay? And so this is a huge, I would say, fitna. I would say even one of the plots of Iblis is to get people to completely be so uncomfortable with the idea of this difference that they completely dismiss it. They dismiss these important matters as, you know what, we'll never really know. It's just what I've come to. It's what's good for me, right? But no one would ever say this is the truth with a capital T. You don't want to say that, because that would mean that the person that you have a great relationship with is on falsehood with a capital F, right? Okay. And which might have consequences. Especially if it's a religious belief, it has otherworldly consequences. So this is the idea that people come to say that there's really no right and no wrong, and things are completely relative. Now, let me tell you exactly how the same people who push this agenda, the idea that you can't say anything's right and wrong, just say what's good for you, right? Just say, well, I believe this. Don't say it's right or wrong, because there's no real truth, okay, with a capital T that's absolute. Okay, I'll tell you two things that show that these people are actually liars. They themselves don't believe that. The first thing is go to courts. Don't people go to court, right? What happens if the courts rule unfairly? Okay, what happens if your property taxes rise? What happens if some issue is done that to you is unfair? The moment a person says the word unfair, what they've actually done is pin themselves to a belief that there is a certain and absolute truth, right? We might disagree on what it is, but they do agree that there is an absolute truth. This is the old world. The old world, your Christians believe that Christianity was absolute truth. Jews believe Judaism was absolute truth. Hindus believe Hinduism was absolute truth. Okay, we all believe that. So, but today now we have this relativism. Okay, and evolving morality and evolving almost like evolving truth. Okay, as we evolve, everything evolves. But the moment that you feel that you're being treated unfair, you belie and betray this concept. Okay, because if everything is relative, what is fairness? Fairness won't exist. So the concept of fairness and the concept of justice, if you establish it and you believe in it, then there's no way that you can go and say that truths and moral truths are completely relative. All right, you just belied that yourself. You undermined that yourself by believing in a concept of fairness when you complained that you were treated unfairly. Okay, so that's the first point. The second point is, don't a lot of these this rhetoric, doesn't a lot of this rhetoric always use the word progress? Right, always uses the word progress. Okay, we need to be progressive. We need to make progress. We're making progress, right? We're getting rights. Okay, now progress means that we're not just advancing. We're not just keep living day after day. That's not progress. That's just staying alive. Progress has to mean that you get better, right? Progress have to mean you get better, right? That's what they mean by progress. We're improving. We're not just progressing every day, 2020, 2021, 2022. No, we're getting better. That's what they mean by that. Now, wait a second. The moment you use a superlative or a comparative adjective, better than what? Better than some baseline, it has to be, right? The moment you use a comparative adjective, okay, you're implying the existence of a baseline. Okay, when you apply the existence of a baseline, that's an absolute, right? So you're basically making a judgment that right now, 2021, the morality we have in 2021 is better than the morality of 1921. Right? The system of laws and rights that people have and they're allowed to do, okay, in things that people are allowed to do in 2021 is better than 1921, better than 1951, better than 1961. So, but the implication of the word better is that there's a baseline, that there's an absolute. So in those two manners, in those two ways, the idea that a person believes that there can be justice in courts and they can be treated fairly or unfairly, that's number one. And number two, the idea that there is progress and improvement and betterment, that also indicates that they truly do believe that there is an absolute truth. Otherwise, what are you comparing to, right? What are you comparing to? And how do you even have the nerve to compare if you don't believe that there's an absolute truth? Okay, so nobody truly can state that they don't believe in an absolute reality or truth. Okay, and I'll give you a third one, which is more like a play of words, which is the idea that the moment you state that there is no absolute truth, okay, we say to you, is that an absolute truth? Is the negation of an absolute truth an absolute truth? Or is that too relative, in which case you just undermine your own argument? Okay, so the statement, the concept of justice and the concept of progress, these are all, they pull the ground from beneath the person who says there's really no absolute truth, and as long as it's good for you, blah blah blah, right? And there's really no real right and wrong on anything. Okay, the majority of the way people live today is it's herd mentality. It's like herd morality. Wherever the masses are going, well, we got to say that's where we're going in life. You do that in any other thing? Would you do that for a tooth extraction? Then why would you do that to discover what is really real about life and afterlife, which you're going to, and you need to prepare for? You're the one who's going to suffer or benefit or nothing in the afterlife. So you're the one who you're the one who to face that. So you can't go and say to remove a tooth, you're not going to leave it up to a majority. You're going to study, find the right dentist, and have him take it out properly. So when your soul gets removed, should you give that a little bit more care and concern than a tooth extraction? You're going to leave that to the herd mentality of, well, what are people saying? People are saying that it's all good as long as you're a nice person. So why am I talking about this? I'm talking about that because this is the main pillar of what causes people not to possess certainty of faith. What we call the word yaqeen. Okay, certainty of faith and certainty of iman too. Okay, and so certainty of iman, the first thing we have to do is remove the roadblocks. We got to remove the weeds. You got to remove the bugs. First, you got to clean out the cup before you can fill it up. All right? So we have to remove this idea, and not just emotionally. Not just let's all get together here and say that there's no, moral relativism is false and untrue. No, we're not going to just do it as a group and sing a song and be happy. No, that's not enough. You have to have it with here. And that's why we gave those three simple arguments that negate that even the person who claims that great moral truths are relative, he himself cannot believe it. All right, he doesn't believe it because he implies the existence of an absolute truth with other statements that he makes. Okay, this is like basic logic, right? Now we talk about yaqeen. The yaqeen of a Muslim is that, firstly, we look at what exists. What exists. This is what we call cosmology. And we hold that it's just the fact, in the same way that gravity exists on this earth, like with the same certainty that you know that the moon and the sun exist, a mu'min knows that Allah and His Messenger exist. Right? Allah is true and real, and the Prophet ﷺ is true and real. Okay, and there's no discussion on that. That's not even up for debate. Okay, and that the Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that there is an afterlife. Okay, and there's a soul, and there's an ego, and there are angels, and there are demons. Okay. This is the canvas, right? If we're gonna paint a picture or something, or we're gonna have a play, the background is the stuff that does not move. It's not negotiable. It's not up for discussion. This is what exists in the world, okay? And to deny its existence is something that we would, it's not acceptable, okay? So that's the first thing, the cosmology. The second thing is epistemology. Epistemology, what are the sources of truth? Right? What's the source of the truth? If we want to say, all right, let's get to the truth. I want the truth. All right? And we want justice. All right, what's the source of truth and justice? Source of truth and justice will be, number one, the word of Allah, the word of the Creator. You cannot have a single iota of doubt about this. The word of the Creator is the number one source of truth. If anything else denies that, okay, it's going to be faulty. It's rejected. If anything goes against it, then there's something wrong with it, or something wrong with how you understood the words of the Creator. You may have misunderstood the words of the Creator. Okay? You may have misunderstood something else. You may have misobserved something. Okay, so the first thing is that the word of the Creator. Secondly is the word of His Messenger. The word of His Messenger. Okay, but again, you may read the word of the messenger, you may misunderstand it, so you have to understand it properly. But in wholesale, the word of the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is the second source of absolute truth. And some people say it's one and it's not. They're the same in the sense that they're both from Allah, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not speak from himself. Okay, then we have the third source is intellect, right? Reason. And when we talk about reason, it's mainly tied up with language. So you cannot say two opposite things, right? It's a jumble up of words. You say a square circle. No such thing. It doesn't exist. It's a jumble up of words. So we need to use intellect. As human beings, we communicate. And how does Allah communicate with us? He communicates with us through words. So we have to understand what the words are. And then we string the words together and we get a meaning. So reason is oftentimes connected to understanding of language, and understanding the implications of those words. So we have an intellect, we have a brain, and Islam elevates intellect more than any other faith. Thirdly, observation. Okay? We observe stuff, we taste stuff, we feel stuff. That's the realm of science, right? We make observations, we come to conclusions. So that's basically, again, a second thing, a fourth source of knowledge, a second one beyond after the revelation, right? And then we go to a fifth one is customs. Customs is a source of reality and truth, right? So customs are also some certain things that we accept. Okay, so good example: you sit down at a barber shop, he starts cutting your hair, right? There was no agreement that you're gonna pay him, but it's understood by custom. The barber's not giving out free haircuts. That's just understood. Right? If you go to a court of law and they say, well, the truth is, he never asked me for money. I sat down, he cut my hair. He can walk right out. Answer is no. But the custom of the land is that these barbershops that would have a blue and red flag twirling around are not people doing charity. There's not charity work, so you're paying them. So customs is one of them. So anyway, these are the sources. That's called epistemology. In a nutshell, we have to always ask ourselves, what is the source of truth in everything? So in our dealings in America, what's the source of the truth about our law? Well, we got the Constitution. You got New Jersey state legislation or whatever. All that stuff. Now we go to another third thing, methodology. All right, methodology. So, okay, we believe in the Quran. We believe in the Sunnah. We believe in logic. All right, we believe in scientific observations. Okay, but what's the method of understanding the Quran properly? What's the method of what happens if there's an apparent contradiction between what I see and what I read, what I think and what I hear? Right? So what I think, what I use my brain logically for, and what I hear in a hadith. So what is the method of understanding and deriving a ruling? And we call this methodology. Usul. Usul, the science of usul, teaches us all this. And it addresses every single possible issue you can imagine related to how do I now extract a conclusion from these sources. So it's like saying, what is the source of food for human beings? Animals and plants and water, right? Okay, but that doesn't necessarily tell us how to extract the meat. So can I just go find a cow, take a bite into him, right? All right, take a bite into a cow, and that's it. And that's because I said source of food is meat, right? A vegetable. Do I go find any berry off a tree and eat it? No. So just because we have firm belief in the Quran and the Sunnah does not necessarily mean we know how to extract a ruling for ourselves, or a principle for ourselves, or a conclusion. Really, the best word is conclusion. Okay, we cannot yet extract a conclusion yet. Okay, because we need to study methodology. All right, methodology. All right. So when we talk about certainty, these are the rational principles: cosmology, epistemology, methodology. That's the basic framework and the map. Now, how do I increase my certainty? I increase my iman, my certainty in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, by constant and non-stop exposure to the remembrance of Allah and the stories of His prophets and the companions of those prophets, and the study of the Quran and the sacred law. So, iman, there's a rational part of it, all right? The rational part of it is, what are we going to believe and why? How can I explain this in like 2 minutes to a regular person? We just gave you basic explanation. Now I need to actually do it. It's almost like saying, how do I get big? I need to get big. All right. You do push-ups, you eat protein, you decrease fat, you jog. So jogging will remove the fat, lifting weights will strengthen your muscles, eating protein will expand the muscles, and drink a lot of water as well. All right? And don't eat fats or sugars or junk food, all right, so that you don't add needless calories to your body. All right, that's good. We summarized it in 60 seconds. But what about doing it now? Now, doing it's a whole nother subject. So doing this ourselves is all about individually, each one of us, exposing ourselves to the remembrance of Allah Ta'ala as much as we can, and the stories of the prophets and the companions. Why? Why do we have to insist and talk about stories of the prophets? Is it because stories are just fun? No, that's not why. It's because stories are the application of the Quran, right? So when I read a story about how did Imam Shafi'i live, or how did a type of mystic person like Uwais al-Qarni live, or a ascetic like Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, how did he live? Okay, or a great prophet like Musa alayhi salam, how did he interact, right, with the people? So that's the application of the truth. The Quran is the truth, but the stories of these prophets, companions, that's the application. And in one story, you can have what is the worth of 10 volumes of lectures in one story. But no one, who's going to read lectures? No one wants to read lectures. You left school for that reason, right? So no one needs to hear another lecture. But I'll hear a story. Any day of the week, I'll listen to a story. And you can extract whatever you extract. Some people extract very little. Some people extract a lot. Right? Some people get touched in their heart. Some people get motivated, get stimulated in their brains, in their minds. So if you have out there, and the beauty of stories, which is the method in which the Quran teaches. What is the pedagogical method? Pedagogical meaning the method of education of the Quran. It's stories. It's not lectures. Humans lecture. We lecture. Because when we lecture, we're lecturing students. Student is someone who he's already expressed interest. I want to be here. I'm smart enough to be here. And I'm ready to study. Right? But the Quran is for everybody. For a 6-year-old, for a 7-year-old, for a 13-year-old, for a 12-year-old, right? For an 80-year-old who doesn't have time for listen to a lecture. So the Quran, Allah Ta'ala in the Quran is teaching everybody, the educated, the uneducated, the young, the poor, the rich, the young, the old, okay? Everyone is being educated here. And therefore, it needs a methodology that's nimble, that can go to all these people. And that methodology is the story. A philosopher will listen to a story because he's going to be wait for the point, right? He's not going to care if the hair is black, yellow, or if you're from Greece or Turkey or Egypt. He doesn't care about those details. The philosopher will think of what is the point here that you're trying to make. Okay, that's what he's looking for. Whereas the same story, a 7-year-old will be like, wow, I'm listening. I want to know more. Well, what happened? What did the king do? Did those boys go into a cave? Was there a spider in the cave? Was there a dog with them? Were they scared? He wants to know those details because that's what appeals to him. And so the Quran gave one lesson, reaches everybody. And the whole life of the Prophet, the seerah, we call the seerah of the Prophet, the biography of the Prophet, it's the same thing. Right? The scholar will sit there and he'll extract a legal principle out of that. He'll extract a ruling, right, out of the story of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Whereas the youth and maybe others will start imagining, well, what was it like with Prophet? They said was wearing red and his hair was bouncing on his shoulders and he had a red garment. And one companion kept looking and looking and said, I'd never seen anything as beautiful as the messenger wearing a red sharp red thobe. So that's the image that's going to conjure up in his mind. So everyone's going to be different. So if you have any youth, if you have any shabab, if you have anyone who you're trying to raise in your household or as friends or for your own self, flee to the stories of the prophets, the companions, okay, because that's where Iman grows. And do not think that this is just like passing time and waste of time and just stories, right? Because these aren't fables. This is true, right? So inside of them is not just lessons, but also Prophet ﷺ said, by the very mention of the Salihin, by the mention of their names, mercy comes down. If you ever wonder why Christians feel so good after church, even though it's false, you believe, like you're sitting there, it's false. Jesus is not the Son of God, right? Okay. But they're coming out feeling so warm and happy. You have to realize they are mentioning the name of God and Jesus and Mary, and just the mention of their name brings down something, right? So even though everything else is false, so we have to even know that just any story, right? Just the fact that the name of that person is mentioned, a special type of mercy comes down. All right, so that is a very quick synopsis of the biggest hurdle in front of the modern Muslim today. That's between him and absolute certainty of yaqeen, okay, certainty of iman, which Imam al-Ghazali said, if iman is like a pebble, okay, a pebble, yaqeen is multiple pebbles that form a mountain that it can no longer be moved. Cannot move that mountain anymore. That's yaqeen. The biggest hurdle, we said, is the idea that we live with so many different people that we don't want to come to the realization and the reality that we disagree on the most important things in the world, right? In the existence, right? In our existence, the existence of the universe, etc. So we usually take the shortcut route of saying, you know what? Let's just leave it all off and it's all relative, and who knows what the truth is, because we don't want to face the fact that we differ, right, on these things. So we said that this is the biggest problem, and that nobody really believes in these, that truth is relative, because the moment that they're mistreated, right, they're going to shout, "Oh, it's unfair." Wait a minute, what do you mean unfair? Fairness implies an absolute, right? Fairness implies an absolute. Or they say we're progressing, right? We're progressing. Tell them, let's go back the way things used to be in 1921. They're like, what are you talking about? We progressed, man. It's 2021. We're progressive, all right? Progress, you use the comparative word, indicates and implies the existence of an absolute. So what are you comparing to, right? So you do believe in an absolute. You tell them, okay, there's no absolute truth. Hold on a second. Is that statement an absolute truth? Because if you say no, then what's the point of saying it, right? It's like saying, I love red apples, right? Red apples are the best. That's not an absolute truth. That's your opinion, right? Who cares? So don't waste your breath telling everyone that, certain apples are the best apples in the world. It's a complete opinion. So when you say that there is no absolute truth, or it's not knowable, right? We say to you, hold on a second, are you saying that as an absolute truth? Are you certain of that? Because if you say yes, then you've proven the existence of an absolute truth, because that statement itself becomes an absolute truth. And if you say no, then you've negated. Then what's the point of talking? Why are you even saying it? It's a complete subjective and speculative comment. Okay. So the what he should say is, I don't know if there's an absolute truth, and I haven't discovered an absolute truth. We say, okay, that's good for you. What do I care, right? So we said that we talked about that hurdle and how we have to push that hurdle aside, and then we talked about basics of cosmology, epistemology, and methodology. If you came late and you missed that part, rewind at the end, because it's a bit long for us to go over again. And then we said, as Imam al-Ghazali said in his book, Faisal al-Tafriqa, certainty of Iman, all of the Imams before him as well said this, the certainty of Iman is established by exposure to the remembrance of Allah and the stories of His prophets and the righteous, because the stories is the application of the Quran, right? So with that, let's open it up and see. I'm pretty nippy out here. I just want to... bit nippy over here. All of a sudden it got nippy outside. All right, so let's go to any comments or questions people have. Thomas, Alicia, Shahnawaz, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam to everyone. Yuki, wa alaikum salam. Umran, salam from Hyderabad. Allahu Akbar. AA. A common Muslim asks scholars of his daily Islamic questions. Okay? They come back upset, not understanding the answer of the scholars. The language which is used is not the language which they want to adopt. The language of the scholar, if it's too complicated for the person, then at that point, ask the scholar to simplify the language. Now, you should simply say, I didn't really understand. Okay? You should simply say, I didn't understand. Tawriya is to say true words that are true, but the meaning is known that you will misunderstand it. That's what Tawriya is. And the old example of the Arabs, if someone knocked at the door and you didn't want to open the door, you would, from behind the door, you would do this. You would make a circle on your hand. Okay? And then you would say, he's not here. So that way you didn't lie in the sight of Allah, because you just said, he's not in my palm. Right? Whereas knowing that the other person understood that he's not in the house. So it's Tawriya. It's not like, it only should be used and there's a dire need, like to save someone's life or something. So I would just go in and say, listen, I didn't understand what you're saying. I have no problem with that, because I hate, intellectual, gymnastics and people trying to show off how smart they are. And you're just saying words. That's all you're saying. Anyone could say words. It's not a big deal. I think someone who actually shows off how big his muscles are is someone who's achieved a lot more than someone who just learned a bunch of words. right? You just learn words and you're saying big words and concepts, and showing off. Not interested. Fatima Wasim says Hamza Sortis explains this very well in his lectures book. That's his main. That's his main his bread and butter, is these doubts of the atheists. All right. Naeem Anthony, alhamdulillah. Narain Ansari, and they're talking about India, mashallah. Mashallah, a lot of people I think know each other here from Twitter, right? Which actually I'm off these days. I'm focusing more on writing books and on doing streams on YouTube. Too much argument. I'm not into arguing. I don't argue. I don't need to argue. What are the three different types of yaqeen? Number one, there are three different levels of yaqeen. The first one is certainty because the source who told you of the fact you trust. All right. So let's use the example of the famous example of a fire. Okay. Your wife who knows how to check news, who's intelligent, who's smart, who's not silly, she comes up to you and says, there's a fire down the street. Right? Immediately you have certainty because her track record proves that she doesn't talk nonsense. She doesn't go to channels on the computer that are on the internet that are weak. She only goes to verifiable sources. So you have absolute certainty that there's a fire now. Okay. You drive your car. She says, can you go? Oh, there's a fire there, but can you go get us some milk anyway? You say, okay, fine. I'm going to drive through the fire to get the family milk. Fine. You're driving through and you see the fire. All of a sudden, what's that? That's ayn al-yaqeen. Now your certainty is, you were certain before. Now your certainty is far greater. You have absolute certainty because you've seen it. Okay. Now, all right, you step out of your car, you see a baby deer, and you want to save it. So you go out and you save that baby deer. But in the meantime, you got burned, okay, by the fire. So not only did you hear it, now you felt its heat and it touched you. All right. So now your certainty is way above. Now, if you want to know what's the value of this, when the police comes and they want to know, and the media comes, they want to hear from the witnesses, right? They say, okay, what's your name? You're a neighbor here. And what's your knowledge of the fire? Well, somebody told me. Okay, that's not enough. All right, let's see this one. How about you? What did you say? I saw the fire myself. Okay, now we're talking. Let's talk. Now someone walks out of the fire. What are all the media going to do? They're going to leave that guy. He just saw it. This guy was in it. So who's of greater value? The one who experiences is greater than the one who sees, is greater than the one who believes. The trustworthy source. Okay? But all of them are certainty. They're all yaqeen. So those are the levels of yaqeen. Assalamu alaikum from Kashmir, mashallah. Allahu Akbar. All right, a lot of people here. Qasim Jawad from the UK. Shahnawaz, what about listening to stories of Sahaba from Islamic scholars and later when we tell the stories to someone, they don't believe it? What should we do in this position? They have a bigger issue. They have a bigger issue in belief. They may not, what do they not believe in? The miracles, right? They don't believe in the miracles that happened to the companions, the karamat. Then they have a problem with the belief in qudra, and their belief in cause and effect is greater than their belief in divine ability, and they may not trust that the Muslims transmitted their stories properly, because that's the thing, we transmitted it properly. And the truth of that, reality of that, is that their scholars are telling you when something's fabricated. So they have identified a method to push away fabrications and to establish what's truthful. So they have that method. Okay, so the existence of that method, and it's something that's mutawatir, but it's just the existence of this field and this science. So they might have other bigger issues. Okay. Science of Tawheed and sciences of the Quran. Yet that's why this summer I'm going to take it easy on the classes. I'm going to still be having these streams, but I'm going to be focusing on writing, because that's one thing that we're very busy from. doing. But gonna get to do that writing. Sheikh, do you eat the meat that was given as a gift from a neighbor who are Muslims, but you're not sure if they maintain halal? Well, if they're Muslims and it's just a general Muslim, then I don't ask. The sunnah, the way that we're taught, okay, what we were taught is we have strict rulings on slaughtering. We don't deny that. We have very strict rulings. And preferably, if you can get your meat to be hand slaughtered, good. You have absolutely no discussion, right? Okay, there are other means of slaughter that are up for discussion, may agreed upon or disagreed upon, such as using a machine, okay? Again, I'm not going to blame because there's scholars on both sides. Now, as long as, but when a Muslim gives me food, I eat it. I'm not going to offend the person. I'm not going to go investigate him. I'm not going to say, oh, okay, well, the woman had like 3 hairs sticking out of her hijab, so she's not a pious woman. She's a fasiq. She's mutabarrija, and therefore I'm not going to take anything from her. No, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to, if they're a Muslim, in a general, nothing abnormal that draws attention that you would have to think about, right? Then I will take their meat and say, alhamdulillah, and I will eat it. I will eat it. Especially it's now, you're asking about food in the wrong time because we're basically 1 hour away from iftar. And anyway, Naeem Anthony saying, Assalamu alaikum, what books are nice to read after you read the Seerah for stories, English or Arabic? There is a book called Hayatus Sahaba. There's a book called Men Around the Messenger that are just basic stories, but I never reject any story. I always ponder it deeper, right? It's almost like listening to Jummah khutbah. It takes effort to listen to khutbah. Sometimes the speaker's no good. He doesn't have any rhetorical style. But I listen to any verse or hadith that he states, and you can ponder that. So likewise, one of the good stories is Men Around the Messenger. That's a famous book, very simple books by Khalid Muhammad Khalid. There's Hayatus Sahaba, which is more on themes like the generosity of the companions, then stories of that. The patience of the companions, then stories of that. And then you want to get Salabi. This is what you really want to get. It's in the English language. Salabi. You're going to fork over a good hunk of money for this. Salabi, his name is Muhammad Salabi. He's a Libyan scholar. He has books this big on the Khalifas. You should get that book. So you might want to get Suyuti's book on the 4 Khalifas first, and then get Salabi's behemoth books like this. He's got Khalid bin Walid in addition to the 4 Khalifas. So get his books, Muhammad Salabi. We're going to have to close up quickly because we have to go for the 7 o'clock. So you might want to migrate just to MBIC channel. Can you explain the difference between Mu'tazilites and who the Mu'tazilites and Ash'arites were? We will do that, but not now just due to the time. Ramadan Mubarak, what is your opinion on Karen Armstrong? I had to read a history of God where she writes that Islam didn't claim to be the one truth. That's just totally, she's a nice lady, but I don't know what she's saying. She has a great book on the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the sense that she has a lot of nice, she has a great attitude, and she selects the material well. Okay, but she's not a Muslim, and ultimately she has her own ideas, and I wouldn't necessarily tell anybody who has not already learned, to look at her things. And the only reason, if you've already learned, the only reason you would read like her Sirah or something is that it's, there are not that many Sirah books out there, and if you want a short, basic Sirah book, hers is pretty decent. But I cannot recommend somebody who is a type of universalist. I can't recommend any of their writings for pietistic and educational purposes as a Muslim, right? But later, one of the ulama made the claim to be the one truth from God. What is our best argument against that idea? The best argument is that the whole idea is completely ridiculous. Okay? The Quran itself says this is al-haq. So what is she talking about if she's saying that? So I didn't see what she said, and she's a very nice lady. I know that for sure. I wish that Allah would guide her into Islam, right? But that statement, right, is just an absurd statement. It's ridiculous. Suyuti's book, The History of the 4 Khalifas, I believe. Simple as that. His History of the 4 Khalifas. And then, last question, top 3 Sirah books in the English language for speakers, you're probably going to go with, there's the book that was written by one of the Darul Uloom scholars. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember. Prophet of Mercy, I think it's called. Messenger of Mercy or Prophet of Mercy. That's one. The second one is the Turkish one, which is, again, very unique title. What's it called? Subhanallah. I can't. It's a very nice, it's a black book with the green dome, and it has a very fancy title. It's in Mecca Books. Let me just open up right now. MeccaBooks.com. You got me curious now what the actual title is. It's called blah 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 blah. And go to MeccaBooks.com. I like this bookstore. So Muhammad by Martin Lings. I like this one. Okay. He's got a lot of nice Seerah books here. He's got the Seerah of the Final Messenger by Hassan S.M. Hassan al-Banna. Is that's who's S.M. Hassan al-Banna? It's not the Hassan al-Banna, is it? All right. It is Imam Hassan al-Banna, the Hassan al-Banna, right? Who to me, in my opinion, he's completely wronged in many things that he's accused of. And anyone who is a Sisi supporter has basically just clicked off the live stream anyway, because they're so against him. But that's fine. Have your own opinion. But he's a good man. Hassan al-Banna he was good. I believe he was one of those who was from the Salihin and even from the Awliya. Yeah, I have no hesitation saying that. Reading his biography, Hassan al-Banna, the Awliya. Okay, so for the Seerah, he doesn't have it here. Where is that book on the Seerah? I'm sure he has it. It's a black... Anyway, I'm not going to waste your time. I'm not going to waste your time. It's got to be here. It's a black book. It's got a fancy title on it. Right, Sultan of Hearts. That's what it is. Sultan of Hearts. So I would say Sultan of Hearts, Prophet of Mercy, and Martin Lings' Seerah. Right. So with that, let's stop here. Take any final statements here? Yeah, there it is. Muslim 2562 says it. Sultan of Hearts, Martin Lings as a good seerah. He was a perennialist. Yeah, no, he is a perennialist. The book is good. That one book is good. He's a perennialist though. In the first chapter, you should read G.F. Haddad's book, his critique of it, to see where there are a few errors, right? But other than that, to truth be told, he wrote a great seerah book. Okay. And unfortunately he died upon perennialism, which is very sad, because someone who devoted his life to Islam and, but he also devoted his life to this philosophy that's absolute kufr. And we could talk about that another day. All right. Disturbing of the Hearts by Ibn al-Jawzi. I didn't read that, believe it or not. Is there a dua that we can do to meet Sayyidina al-Khizr? Focus more on seeing the Prophet in your dreams than meeting Sayyidina al-Khidr. And do that by much salah and salam on the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk wal asr. Inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa aminu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. And see you next Monday.